my.
What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be showing off a brand new deck that I finally finished devising, the B.E.S. Big Core deck. This deck has been around forever, and technically speaking it hasn't been an actual deck ever since it was created because it was so under-supported. But it received a new couple of cards that make the deck not only playable, but somewhat good. Add in a couple of tech cards that fit around the general archetype of machine type, and you have yourself a well-rounded deck, in my opinion. So let's see where this goes. Starting off with the monster lineup, we have a play set of B.E.S. Crystal Core. Now, the majority of B.E.S. monsters have a common trend in their effects. If they are normal summoned, you get to place 3 counters on them. If they battle, they lose a counter, regardless if it's with a monster or a direct attack, but if they ever battle without a counter, they are automatically destroyed at the end of the damage step by its own card effect. Otherwise, they cannot be destroyed in battle. So the counters act like barriers to prevent them from dying in direct combat, just like how the BES and Big Core cards work in the video game Gradius. Now, some of them have their own unique effects. BES Crystal Core's unique effect is that once per turn, it has the ability to change an attack position monster to defense mode. Not really anything major, but it does help out in certain combat situations. Then we have one copy of the original Big Core. I want to run this card at 3, but in all honesty, it doesn't really do anything for the deck. It's more just a placeholder for a potentially better card. It has the standard effect, and it has 2,300 attack points, which is the second largest out of any of the 6-star monsters in the deck, but it doesn't really do anything. So for now, it's at 1 unless I decide to do something else with it. Next up is BES Big Core Mark II, a marked improvement over regular Big Core. Now this one has slightly different effects from the standard. If you control no monsters, you can normal summon him without tributing, but when he's special summoned is when he gains counters. Otherwise, his effects are the same as every other one. With him having 100 extra attack points as well, he is a fair contender in battle compared to Big Core, but not by a very large margin. The weakest one out of the 6-star variety, but with the best effect, actually has to be BES Tetran. 1,800 attack and 2,300 defense means that he's better off as a defense than an offense. But his effect makes him act like MST. You remove a counter and destroy a spell trap on the field, but you can only use its effect once per turn. The only 7-star in the deck is BES Covered Core. Now, its unique effect is a bit weird. It only gains 2 counters when it's summoned, and each time it battles, you flip a coin and call heads or tails. If you're right, it doesn't lose the counter, so it has the potential to keep going. But by far, the best one out of the entire deck is of course BES Big Core Mark III, the newest monster. Its effects are that if your opponent controls a monster and you don't, you can special summon it from your hand in defense mode. If it's normal or special summoned, it gains 3 counters. And if it's in the graveyard, you get to banish it and return all other BES and Big Core monsters in the grave back to the deck. So it is a multifunctional card. I kinda just wish they had applied this effect to Big Core Mark II instead of Mark III. Losing out on the potential to resummon a big beat stick like this actually kind of hurts the archetype as a whole, but it's something that I can easily overlook. Next we move into the spell lineup, which is fairly large. We have triple BEF Zelos. This card is what makes this deck function. Without the field spell, it has a very difficult time operating. When you activate it, you get to search out a copy of Boss Rush. All BES and Big Core monsters gain 500 attack and defense. When a BES monster is summoned, it gains an additional counter. Once per turn, you can special summon a BES or a Big Core monster from your hand for free, and that does reset if you play a new copy of the field spell, by the way. And your BES and Big Core monsters cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, nor can they even be targeted. That is a fair amount of protection on a field spell that honestly I think should have gone into some of the monsters in the first place, so this is a fair makeup along with Big Core Mark III for an archetype that was so undersupported. Now Boss Rush, even though it is now searchable, is still fairly detrimental to the overall playstyle of the deck. You cannot normal summon while it's face up on the field, but during the end phase, if a BES or Big Core monster you control is destroyed and sent to the grave, you get to summon another one from the deck. Which means if you have 3 of these out, you get 3 monsters if you lose 1, which is very easy to do considering the fact that they self-destruct after they battle without a counter, which is kind of the point. double Dark Hole, which does in fact trigger Boss Rush, triple Instant Fusion for a very awkward reason, and I'll get into that in a minute. Limiter Removal doubles the attack of all machine-type monsters that you currently control, but destroys them during the end phase. And I did check on this. This does work in tandem with Boss Rush. Triple Magical Mallet. This is an arguable card for this deck. Shuffle any number of cards in your hand back into your deck and then redraw the same number, for very obvious reasons. And reasoning, because nobody will ever be able to guess the right level on a deck that has nothing but level 5 and higher monsters. And triple Terraforming, because as I said, the deck does not operate well without having the field spell. And then we get into the small trap lineup. Bottomless Trap Hole staple in all my decks. Double Jar of Avarice. Obviously I have a way to return the monsters to the deck, but what do I do if I lose out on a ton of my field spells and my boss rushes? I need a way to return them to the deck, because just having them in the graveyard does me no good, so Jar is a good way to get them back. Solemn Warning, staple in everybody's deck. And Transmigration Prophecy. Ideally, you'll want to use this card on your own Jars of Avarice since they cannot return each other, but I have used this to mess with my opponents when it comes to picking their own grave cards. Next, we move into the side deck. Starting off with a double big core that's not in the main. Like I said, I really want to put all three in the main deck, but they just don't do anything for the general archetype. Even the beaters with 7 stars and higher do more. One Brain Control, which actually has some play against this deck, so this card could be good as a mirror match item. Double MST, in the event that my Tetrans don't really work out as well as I'd like to think they do. Compulsory. Double Fiendish Chain. Double Memory Loss. Mirror Force. Power Sink Stone, which is a questionable tech in this deck. It basically acts like a pseudo skill drain. Each time a monster effect activates, this card gains a counter. And when this card has 2 counters, monsters on the field cannot activate their effects, and their effects are negated. And at the end phase of each turn, it resets to 0 counters. And the Skill Drain, which pay 1,000 points, monster effects on the field are negated. The reason I run these two is because, well, if they lose their effects to be indestructible in battle, but require them to remove a counter, they just become generic beat sticks. And one Torrential Tribute. And we finish up with the extra deck, and yes, this deck does in fact have an extra deck. Triple Panzer Dragon. If this card's destroyed and sent to the grave, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. Now, this card really does not use this effect that much. I mainly use it as an Xyz material. And there's an obvious card as to what my Xyz monster would be, but I'll leave that as a surprise until we get to it. Now, Barbaroid, the Ultimate Battle Machine, is a tech card purely for the Xyz monster that I mentioned earlier, and I'm sure you've pretty much recognized what it is. But this thing has an incredible variety of effects, and it's a 12-star fusion monster. You can summon it using 5 machine-type Roid monsters, but let's be honest, we're not doing that. It can attack twice during each battle phase, but cannot attack directly. After damage calculation, if it attacked a monster, you negate its effects, even in the grave, and if this destroyed a monster in battle, you inflict 1,000 damage to the opponent. The only real reason I run Barbaroid in this deck is because it can in fact be pulled by Cyber Dragon Nova. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, I have the ability to summon any machine-type fusion monster from my extra deck, and I wanted to make sure I had a powerhouse choice in the event that I already ran out of Panzer Dragons, which has happened. It has other effects, such as being able to special summon Cyber Dragon itself, and banishing Cyber Dragon to give itself an attack point boost, but, well, I don't run Cyber Dragon. Then we run one copy of Super Quantal Mech Beast Magnolighter. It can't attack unless it has Xyz material, and once per turn you can attach a material to target a monster on the field and destroy it. The other effects involve having a Super Quantum Red layer on it as a material, so it really doesn't matter. It's mainly just an extra popper. Then one copy of Cyber Dragon Infinity. I'm thinking of putting it to 2, but right now 1 is enough. You can rank it on top of a Cyber Dragon Nova. It gains 200 attack points per material on it, and once per turn you can target an attack position monster and absorb it as a material. And once per turn during either turn, you can detach a material to negate a card or effect. That's the only reason I really run Cyber Dragon Nova. The Barbaroid was just a little bonus that I discovered when I was doing research for easily summonable fusion monsters. And finally, we have 2 copies of Constellar Ptolemy M7. This card requires 2 level 6 monsters, which as you saw, there's actually a fair number of level 6 machines. Once per turn, you can attach a material to target a monster on the field or in the graveyard, either players, and add it back to the hand. And that is the deck. I love the way that this deck operates. It's essentially the Cosmos Starships on a little bit of a power kick. But realistically, the deck itself does have its fair share of mechanical problems. Being a level 5 and higher deck, and only one of them having the ability to special summon themselves, and one of them having the ability to normal summon themselves without tribute, makes for a very hard method of summoning them. If your opponent locks out special summoning somehow, you're screwed. If your opponent prevents your field spell from going off, you're screwed. But on the instances that you do get the ability to play this deck, you do have a lot of fun. Summoning a large variety of beat sticks out of a single monster destruction is one of the funniest things that I've ever had the pleasure of doing to my opponents. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys liked the deck profile, and if you can think of any way that I can improve this deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.
What's the next stage? What's the next stage?